If you're new here, my name is Catherine, and welcome. That's not my intro. Not my intro. Hi. If you're new here, my name is Catherine, and I'm here to talk about books. Today's video actually was inspired by a comment from one of my subscribers. I will put their username here. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. It's a great name, and I made sure I put the right amount of S, M's, and A's in there. You're welcome. This was a comment that they made on one of my videos a long time ago. I believe on my first lines of classics tier ranking video, which if you haven't watched, I recommend. This person commented, why don't you read the first lines of your TBRs to try to pick which TBR you want? And I was like, that is a great idea. That's a fantastic idea. And so I just kind of filed that away in the back of my mind because I knew I was going to need that at some point, because right now I am in the midst of trying to pick a new book and I can't figure out for the life of me which one I want. In this video I'm going to read the first line of a book that I am kind of interested in reading in. It might be the one that I read, might not be. That I am like toying with. I can't talk! So in this video I have a stack of books that I am considering reading. They're contenders, and I'm just going to read the first line of the book and kind of dissect it, like chew it around, see how I feel, and by the end of the video I'll have picked a new book to read. Currently I'm reading Open Veins of Latin America, which I'm almost done with. I'm like about to finish. And I'm reading The Heat of the Day, which is for a book club. And I gotta say, I'm ready to move on. Both are like very dense reads, and I'm looking for something now that's a little bit lighter. I'm also very soon, basically whichever one of those I finish first, I'm starting War and Peace. And anyone who's read War and Peace knows it's not a walk in the park, it's not a little light book, there's a lot going on and it can be kind of dense. So I have that big book, I'll have that going, but I want like a smaller, lighter book to go along with it. Not necessarily lighter in theme, since I like dark books, I like heavy content, but one that is shorter and not as like dense literature-wise or writing style-wise. So I have a stack of books that I have just been kind of thinking about. Like all these books I've like had kind of in the back of my mind and I've been thinking about and I kind of want to get to. So I thought, how great would it be if I just read the first line, we can go over it together, you can see if you like it, if you don't like it, and then it'll kind of help guide me into picking which one I want to read. It's a great problem to have. It's a fantastic problem to have. The fact that I just like have these nice books lying around that are just waiting for me to read, and I just know that like this stack of books is all books that I'm really going to like. I just have good vibes about a lot of them, except for maybe one. This one I'm not sure about, but I'm willing to take a risk. But the rest of them, like, I just know that these are going to be ones that I really, really like. So we can only win. We can really only win in this scenario. So I'm excited. Sit back, get a little snack, and let's read some first lines of books, shall we? First, I have Elena Ferrante's The Days of Abandonment. I have heard so much about this book. I've heard great things about this book. I love the color of the cover. I don't know why. It reminds me of like toys I had in the late 90s, early 2000s that are this kind of like crazy purple. I have read My Brilliant Friend, the first of her Neapolitan novels. Neapolitan novels. Why did I say it like that? I really liked My Brilliant Friend. I really did. Again, I'm not really a series person, so I really just read it and went, great, and then didn't really make extensive plans to keep reading. However, I've known people who've read the second one. They're like, the second one's even better. It gets really good. So I will get to that eventually. But in the meantime, I did pick this one up because this is its own standalone novel. This is basically about a woman whose husband leaves her and just kind of how she is dealing with it and dealing with the ramifications of it. And in the process is incredibly unhappy and is also sort of neglecting her children as she's going through this turmoil. And I just have heard that the prose in this, the development is just fantastic. So this has been on my mind for a long time. I've been wanting to pick this up for a really long time. So let's read the first line, shall we? The Days of Abandonment. One April afternoon, right after lunch, my husband announced that he wanted to leave me. Bang out of the gate. She's not waiting around. She's getting right to the crux of the thing. Also announced. Jeez. He announced that he's going to leave me. Like, it's a proclamation. He's going to do it. I can't say that that's a line that's like, is totally engrossing, but that does interest me. That does kind of hook me. So, I wish I could read Italian. I feel like reading these in Italian would just be creme de la creme, but don't look at me for that. I can't say it's totally hooking, but Something about her writing I found, especially with My Brilliant Friend, it was very deceptive. Like, it seemed very simple on top, and then there was so much underneath it, and she was incredibly skilled in terms of characterization, in terms of plot. So I know this will get real good, real juicy, but we'll see. Next is a book, unusual pick for me. Very unusual, but as this book has kind of, I wouldn't say waned in popularity, but this is not the peak of how popular this book is. I'm definitely late to this train. But just as it's simmered and as people have talked about it and as I've heard more people discuss this author, I've become very interested. Also, the miniseries just seems really good and really interesting. It's Normal People by Sally Rooney. I have not read any Sally Rooney before. She's an Irish writer. She has become incredibly famous, especially for this book, for Beautiful World, Where Are You?, for Conversations with Friends, and she has a new book coming out, Intermezzo. So, like, I'm keyed in. Like, I'm keyed into the world of Sally Rooney. I've just never picked her up. But I found this at the thrift store. It was $1, which is also great when you are someone that is late to the game because you don't buy it new. You buy it when someone is like, I read this and I don't want it anymore. And it's way less expensive. I know that something that pisses people off about this book is that she doesn't use quotation marks. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, this could be interesting. Let's see what the first is. The first line. It's January 2011. Marianne answers the door when Connell rings the bell. Okay. Marianne answers the door when Connell rings the bell. Well, those are the two main characters of the book. Those are the two people that are in the relationship. As I remember it, the plot, I believe Connell's mother works for Marianne's family. Like, I believe Connell's mother is a housekeeper and works for Marianne's family, and that's how these two kind of meet. And if I am not mistaken, it's the kind of story where they, like, have a relationship in high school, Connell's really popular and Marianne is not popular, and then they both go to college and it flips. Marianne then becomes kind of the popular one and blossoms, and Connell becomes a bit more withdrawn, and it's not as easy for him. That's how I know the plot. So the fact that it starts right out the gate with, like, the two people of the story being in the first sentence, I think is significant. Can't say it's a great line. I think it's okay. It definitely is an inciting action. We're going to see these two interact. Yeah. Okay. Next is a really random pick, but I've also had this book for a while with me. I've just been curious about it. It's been hanging out on my shelf, and I look at it every so often, and I'm like, what are you up to? And he looks at me like, maybe you'll read me? I don't know. It's Death in the Family by James Agee. This, I believe, yes, was the winner of the Pulitzer Prize. This is basically about a man who's en route to go see his family when he dies in a car accident, and it's about his funeral and how everybody reacts to his death. As far as I know, it's like he's someone in the family who's kind of a central figure, and when he passes away, it has all of these consequences. It takes place in 1915, but I believe this book was written in the 50s, if I'm not mistaken. This particular edition is from the 90s. And again, it's got a border sticker. Rip Borders. So I've had this book a while. I thrifted this book. I don't know how much I paid for it, but it's been sitting on my shelf for a while, and I'm just curious. I'm kind of on a mission to read all the Pulitzer Prize novels. That's like a long-term goal. That's not short-term. So this would be crossing that off the list. So let's see what the first line is. There's a prologue, so I will take the first line from the prologue. So the setting, it says it's Knoxville, summer 1915. We are now talking of summer evenings in Knoxville, Tennessee, in the time that I lived there so successfully disguised to myself as a child. Whoa, that's kind of a convoluted sentence. That's kind of a lot. We are talking now of summer evenings in Knoxville, Tennessee, in the time that I lived there so successfully disguised to myself as a child. That's such a fascinating sentence. Lived there so successfully disguised to myself as a child. So I guess, like, he is a child, but he feels like he's an older soul, or maybe he is an older soul that's trapped in a child's body. That is a funky sentence. I'm just going to read the next one just to see if that maybe gives us more clues. It was a little bit mixed sort of block, fairly solidly lower middle class, with one or two juts apiece on either side of that. That is bizarre. This might just be indicative of the character. Maybe it's the guy who dies? That's fascinating. That actually gets me really intrigued for this because that's not easy. Like, that's a very tricky Those are very tricky sentences. And again, it could just be the way that this is how the character speaks, but how specific, like how strange. Okay. Okay. Didn't think this one would be as much of a contender, but okay. Next, we have one that I think is like a critical darling that people love, and that, again, I've had for a while and just never gotten to. It's White Teeth by Zadie Smith. Yeah, people love this one. There is such love for this book. I know she just came out with a book. I believe it's called The Fugitive. I could be wrong about that. But apparently that one did not do as well, but this is the one that everybody is obsessed with. Gotta say, kind of bored by the cover. Maybe orange has something to do with the novel that I'm missing? I don't know. Oh, Salman Rushdie said it was good. Then it's gotta be good. I don't know too much about this book, is the thing. Like, I've had it, and I know that people like it, but I can't tell you I know too much about what happens in this, and I kind of want to keep it that way. I don't know why with this book I feel like that is going to enhance the reading experience, but I don't know. Oh, it's one of those ones that has, like, multiple perspectives. Like, the books are different people, which I always find to be really interesting. I forget what it's called when there's, like, a quote that kind of sums up the book at the beginning. It has a specific name, and I can't think of it. But they chose a quote from Ian Forster's Where Angels Fear to Tread, which I think is interesting. I'm not going to count that as the first line. But in Chapter 1, The Peculiar Second Marriage of Archie Jones. Early in the morning, late in the century, Cricklewood, Broadway. That's it. That's the first line. Early in the morning, late in the century, Cricklewood, Broadway. I'm going to read just the second one just to see what else that gives me. At 06:27 hours, At 06:27 hours on January 1st, 1975, Alfred Archibald Jones was dressing in corduroy and sat in a fume-filled Cavalier Musketeer estate face down on the steering wheel, hoping the judgment would not be too heavy. Yeah, I sneeze really loud. I'm going to read that again. At 06:27 hours on January 1st, 1975, Alfred Archibald Jones was dressed in corduroy and sat in a fume-filled Cavalier Musketeer estate face down on the steering wheel, hoping the judgment would not be too heavy upon him. Ooh, that sounds like he's, trying to do something. That's intense. That's an intense way to start a book, but I gotta say, I'm interested. Why? Why is he doing that? It's in 1975. I gotta say, the first line doesn't give too much. Although Cricklewood, Broadway, is that an estate? Is that a house? Is that a street? That gets me interested, I gotta say, because I want to know why. I want to know why. Next, we have what I think is one of the best titles of any book ever. It's Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk, who is a Polish writer. Again, this one I don't know too much about. Actually, I think my boyfriend got this book. I did not wind up picking this book up, but it's been on my TBR. I'm just going to read the back. In a remote Polish village, Janina devotes the dark winter days to studying astrology, translating the poetry of William Blake, and taking care of the summer homes of wealthy Warsaw residents. Her reputation as a crank and a recluse is only amplified by her not-so-secret preference for the company of animals over humans. Then a neighbor, Bigfoot, turns up dead. Soon other bodies are discovered in increasingly strange circumstances. As suspicions mount, Janina inserts herself into the investigation, certain that she knows who done it. If only anyone would pay her mind. That seems fascinating to me. And again, drive your plow over the bones of the dead? Like, rock on. That's just like a really intense title. Let's read the first line. Let's do it. The title of the chapter is called Now Pay Attention. I'm already at an age, and additionally in a state, where I must always wash my feet thoroughly before bed, in the event of having to be removed by an ambulance in the night. Oh, what a peculiar lady. I actually love that. That right there, like, it's a longer sentence, so there's a lot more room for information, but that gives me so much about the character. At an age, so she's at an age where she's fearing that she has to be picked up by an ambulance, that she has to be rushed to the hospital. But, like, why does she have to wash her feet? Because if the ambulance comes to take her away, would they make her get up? They would probably just move her to a stretcher. Unless they do things differently in Poland? I don't know. Fascinating. And then the next sentence is interesting too. Geez. Had I examined the ephemerides that evening to see what was happening in the sky, I wouldn't have gone to bed at all. So she consults the stars, I see. Oh, interesting. Okay. 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 I'm feeling that. I'm really feeling that. Next, we have a book I received for Christmas a while ago from my brother, and I promise you, Mac, I am going to read it at some point, I swear. It's Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I am also late to the train on this one. However, the praise for this book, I'm like, I have to read this. This is apparently about Hamnet, who was one of Shakespeare's sons. Shakespeare himself is not named in this book, but the rest of his family is, and it's specifically about his son, Hamnet. So Shakespeare's never named, but this is about like his family life. Beautiful cover. I really do want to get to this. So let's see what the first line is. Oh, they give you historical notes. Well, I'll read the historical notes, but I'm not going to count it as the first. In the 1580s, a couple living on Henley Street, Stratford, had 3 children, Susanna, then Hamnet, and Judith, who were twins. The boy, Hamnet, died in 1596, age 11. 4 years or so later, the father wrote a play called Hamlet. Also, fun fact, Hamlet is my favorite of the Shakespeare tragedies. I know it's basic, I know it's what everybody picks, to be or not to be, but like, if you read Hamlet and you like see a good production of it, oh, so good. Alright, so let's read the first line. Oh! Oh! There's not 1, not 2, not 3, 4 strand bookmarks in this book. Why is that? Oh, there is a strand bookmark. I think he did get it from the strand. There's only 4 bookmarks in here. Woo! We're set on strand bookmarks. Anyway, we read the historical notes. A boy is coming down a flight of stairs. Okay. The passage is narrow and twists back on itself. Okay. It's giving Lord of the Flies, like a boy is descending a rock. It's given that. I can't say that super gets me into it. I'm guessing it's Hamnet. I'm going to assume. I do know that this book gets extremely poetic and like the language gets incredibly beautiful. However, I can't say that really gets me into it. I can't really say it does. So, we'll see. And the last is a book that I have mentioned actually in my yearly TBR video that I made a long time back, which again, go watch it if you haven't watched it. I have mentioned that I wanted to read this book, however, I'm a little scared to read this book because I'm afraid it's just going to be so unbelievably depressing. And that, for me, is saying a lot because I read very depressing books, but I just know this one is, like, very heavy. It's The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. I love Joan Didion. I've read Play It As It Lays, which I read earlier this year. Oh, so good. And I've read Slouching Towards Bethlehem. I read that last year. So I love her writing. I think she's great. So this is a memoir specifically. And again, I'm on a memoir kick. I'm reading a ton of memoirs. And so I'm like, do I read another memoir right now? However, it's Joan Didion and I feel like I have to. And I've just heard such great things about this book. This did win the National Book Award. Good for you, Joan. This is specifically about the year that she lost both her husband and her daughter. Like, I don't know how you come back after that. I truly don't know how you bounce back after that. And it's sort of detailing her life during that time, losing these 2 incredibly important people who are on the back of the book. And how she dealt with it, and what she was thinking of, and what her mind was going through when she was going through this intense grief. And it just seems so interesting, because that's so personal. Like, that is deeply, deeply personal, and she's putting it all out there. Also, this seems like a very simple cover. It's kind of like White Teeth, where I'm like, it's just but the colors of these letters spell her husband's first name. It spells John. J-O-H-N. I was like, oh, that actually makes this very, very beautiful cover. So let's see what the first line is. Let's see what Joan has to say. So there's like almost like a little poem at the beginning, and then there's, oh, it's relevant. I think I should read the whole thing. So it's almost like a little poem or like just a little excerpt at the beginning. Life changes fast, life changes in the instant. You sit down to dinner and life as you know it ends. The question of self-pity. Those were the first words I wrote after it happened. Oh, poor Joan. That's also so, that reminds me of Play It As It Lays, actually. It's a very similar tone. Life changes fast, life changes in the instant. You sit down to dinner and life as you know it ends. The question of self-pity. You sit down to dinner and life as you know it ends. happens. Oof. Oof. Yeah, and it goes on, the rest of it is not telling what happened, it just is about her, like, physically writing it. Oh, interesting. Interesting. I have half a mind to pick this one up just because it's already on my TBR, so I have to, like, get all those books crossed off, but that was good. That one's quite good. Okay, those are the books that I was thinking of. I'm gonna say right now, I don't think it's gonna be either of these two. Just judging on the first line alone, I can't say I was hooked by either one of these. I know I'm in for a good ride with this. Like, I know I'm gonna pick this up probably later this year. Not for the sake of this video, just when I want to pick it up. I know Elena Ferrante's writing, I know it's gonna get really good. Normal people will pick it up at some point. We'll get to it. I don't want to say that this is like, because it's a romance book, it's super simplistic, so I'm like, I'll read it when I'm reading harder stuff. I think this book has its own depth, so I won't discredit it, but I have to say that the first line, it doesn't really do it for me. So I think these two are going to be out. Oh, and Hamnet. I'm going to take out Hamnet as well. I know I'm going to get to Hamnet. I'm going to get to it. I will do it. I know I'm probably going to love this. It's just not now. It's just not, yeah, I'm just not feeling it. If you haven't noticed, I'm like a very intuitive reader. There are things that I'm like, oh, in the year I will read that later on, but a lot of times it's a gut feeling. I'm like, I really just want to read that right now. Ooh, that's calling to me right now. And so even though I'm sure these are going to be great, they're just not calling to me. So we're down to these four. We're down to A Death in the Family, White Teeth, Drive Your Plow, and The Year of Magical Thinking. Because we also have to think, we're reading one of these at the same time as War and Peace. Which if you have read War and Peace, then you probably know better than me, like, what would pair best with it. But I don't want to read, you've noticed, none of these are Victorian or 19th century. I just don't want to read 19th century at the same time as, like, a massive tome of 19th century writing. It just would be too much at once. So these are all 20th century and 21st century picks. So I'm feeling like this might be too, I don't think I'm ready for this yet. I really think this might be good in the fall. This might be a good, like, September, October book when I'm out of the woods with War and Peace. I just feel like this might not be it, even though I have to say that does hook me at the beginning. But I have to say the lines that have hooked me the most are the ones from these books. This one's a little long. White Teeth is a little long. She's 448 pages, which is, in the grand scheme, obviously compared to War and Peace, is not that long, but I feel like this might be too long. However, the apparent unaliving of oneself in the beginning sounds fascinating, and I want to know the details. But I don't think this is it. I don't think this is it, but we're getting close. We're getting close to reading this. I'm predicting maybe a little later in the summer, maybe at the very end of the summer. I'm feeling it. So we're down to Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead and A Death in the Family. I have to say that the writing style in this is unlike anything just from the two lines, I'm like, I've never read sentences like these. That's kind of crazy. I'm really feeling this one. I think this might be it. Though again, I am reading Tolstoy, and he can be a little long-winded, and he can be a little tricky at times. So again, I don't want anything where the prose is, like, too difficult for me to get through. So if I'm reading more sentences that are like, oh, well, I don't get what's going on here. Yes, but this, I'm really drawn to this. I'm really drawn to this. Also that there's Moida, love a little Moida, and that she is trying to solve it, but everyone thinks that she might be guilty. Ooh, this is tough. This is tough. I didn't think it would come to these two, I'm gonna be perfectly honest. It's this one. It's Drive Your Plow. I think this is it. I feel it. I feel it. It has to be this one. Cool. That first line just sounds so cool. I am already at an age and additionally in a state where I must always wash my feet thoroughly before bed in the event of having to be removed by an ambulance in the night. With night being capitalized, by the way, in the night. Okay. I think we're gonna do this one. So when I finish, whichever I finish first, Open Veins of Latin America or the heat of the day. Whichever one I finish first, that's when I'll start War and Peace. And when I finish the other one, we are going to pick up Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. Okay, this was fun. This was trickier than I thought it was going to be because I can't get too much from the first lines. When I did the tier ranking video, some of those lines are absolutely iconic and they're known to history and known to man, but these are books where they're not really known for their first lines. Some of these, I'm sure, later down the line are going to get their little penguin black spine and be considered classics, but at the moment, these are maybe more modern classics or they are more contemporary novels, because this one came out, I believe, this one came out in 2009. But I can tell the writing style is going to be very different from Tolstoy. It's definitely not 19th century, that's for sure. We can't do two 19th century novels at once. I love them, but no. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on this journey, picking my next book. If you like this video, please let me know. If you have other video ideas, please let me know, because I will do them. I'm always looking for new ideas. I constantly copy people from YouTube, but like it's nice to do something a little bit different. Be a little original and a little creative. I'm trying. Oh yeah, also it won the Nobel Prize. So it's an award winner. We'll see how much we like this. So great. If you like this video, you can like it, you can comment on it, you could subscribe, you could share the video, you can do whatever you want. You can just do whatever you want. You can go out and eat a whole thing of cookie dough. I don't care. But whatever you do, I hope whatever you're reading is great. Let me know below what you are reading, if you have any recommendations. And I will see you in the next one. Bye! Also, happy Brat Summer. If you know, you know.